Imagine a city, bustling with life, silenced in an instant, not by ash and pumice raining down for days, but by a superheated, fast-moving avalanche of volcanic fury, so hot it could actually turn a human brain to glass. This isn't the Pompeii story you think you know. This is the tale of its forgotten twin, Herculaneum, a city uniquely entombed, holding secrets that even Pompeii couldn't keep. For centuries, one name has dominated the story of Vesuvius's cataclysm. But what if the lesser-known victim holds an even more vivid, more intact, and in some ways, more terrifying record of that fateful day in 79 AD? What if the real treasure trove of Roman life, frozen in its final fiery moments, has been lying in wait, overshadowed by its more famous sibling? The year is 79 AD. The Roman Empire stretches across the known world, a colossal power of engineering, art, and military might. Along the sun-drenched Bay of Naples, life is vibrant, prosperous. Wealthy Romans flocked to this picturesque coastline, building luxurious villas, indulging in the region's famed wine and produce, and soaking in its natural hot springs. Two towns, nestled at the foot of the seemingly dormant Mount Vesuvius, were jewels of this coastal paradise: Pompeii, the bustling commercial hub, and Herculaneum, its smaller, more exclusive neighbor. Herculaneum, mythically named after the hero Hercules, was a refined resort town. Its population, estimated around 5,000, was generally wealthier than Pompeii's. Grand townhouses, adorned with intricate mosaics and vibrant frescoes, lined its well-paved streets. You can almost hear the sea breezes carrying the sounds of daily life, the murmur of conversations in the forum, the clatter of workshops, the laughter of children playing in courtyards. Unlike sprawling, more industrial Pompeii, Herculaneum offered a more intimate, perhaps more leisurely pace of life. Its citizens were skilled artisans, fishermen, and merchants. They lived in multi-story homes, some with balconies looking out over the shimmering bay. They worshipped in ornate temples, relaxed in public baths, and went about their business with the quiet confidence of those living in a prosperous corner of a mighty empire. The fertile volcanic soil, a gift from Vesuvius itself, supported lush vineyards and olive groves, adding to the region's wealth. Life was good. The mountain that loomed above them, that was just part of the stunning landscape, a silent green-clad giant that hadn't hinted at its destructive power for generations. Pliny the Younger, whose letters give us one of the few eyewitness accounts of the eruption, described the region as a place of unparalleled beauty, showered with nature's blessings. But this idyllic existence was lived on borrowed time. Deep beneath the earth, unimaginable pressures were building. The people of Herculaneum, like those in Pompeii and the surrounding villas, carried on with their daily routines, completely unaware of the cataclysm about to shatter their world, and preserve it in a way no one could have foreseen. They were, in every sense, living on the edge of a volcano, a fact that would soon define their legacy for millennia. The ground beneath their feet, so fertile and giving, was also the source of their impending doom, a tragic irony that makes Herculaneum's story all the more poignant. The morning of August 24th, 79 AD, probably began like any other in Herculaneum. The sun rose over the Bay of Naples, its golden light bathing the town's elegant buildings and bustling harbor. But that tranquility wasn't to last. Around midday, or perhaps early afternoon, Mount Vesuvius, the silent giant, woke up with a terrifying roar. The first phase of the eruption shot a colossal column of ash, pumice, and volcanic gas miles into the sky, a terrifying spectacle visible for miles around. This was what primarily hit Pompeii. For hours, lighter pumice and heavier ash rained down on the larger city, gradually burying it, collapsing roofs, and trapping its people. Many Pompeians had some time, however limited, to try and escape, though thousands would ultimately die. Herculaneum, though, was to the west of Vesuvius and upwind of that initial ashfall. It was largely spared this first assault. While tremors would have shaken the town and that terrifying plume would have dominated the sky, the immediate danger might have seemed less direct than for their neighbors in Pompeii. Some historians and archaeologists think that many of Herculaneum's residents, seeing where the ash cloud was going, might have initially felt a grim sense of relief, maybe even believing they had time to get away by sea. But Vesuvius's fury was about to shift, and for Herculaneum, this shift would be devastatingly unique. As the eruption wore on, the massive column of volcanic debris in the stratosphere started to collapse under its own weight. This triggered a series of pyroclastic surges and flows, ground-hugging, superheated avalanches of ash, gas, and rock fragments, moving at terrifying speeds, much faster than anyone could run. The first of these surges, hitting perhaps 12 hours after the initial eruption, was a relatively dilute cloud, but it was intensely hot. It swept down Vesuvius's western flank, straight for Herculaneum. Temperatures within these flows could reach hundreds of degrees Celsius. Estimates for Herculaneum range from 250 degrees to as high as 500 degrees, or even more in those first blasts. This wasn't the slow burial that Pompeii was experiencing. This was an instant inferno. The intense heat would have killed anyone exposed instantly. Recent studies even suggest the heat was so extreme it could have vaporized soft tissues and, in some rare cases, vitrified brain matter, turning it into a glass-like substance. This searing heat wave was followed by the pyroclastic flows proper, denser, hotter, and more powerful. At least 6 distinct pyroclastic surges and flows have been identified as having flooded Herculaneum. Each flow dumped a new layer of hot, fine-grained material, mixed with larger rock fragments. Unlike Pompeii, buried under a relatively porous layer of pumice and ash up to 6 meters deep, Herculaneum was engulfed by a dense concrete-like mass of volcanic material, reaching depths of up to 20 to 25 meters in places. This stuff flowed like a liquid, surging through streets, filling buildings from the ground up, carbonizing organic materials like wood on contact, and sealing the town in an airtight tomb. It was this specific type of burial, rapid, intensely hot, and by a material that solidified into a compact, non-porous mass that led to Herculaneum's unique state of preservation. While Pompeii's ash allowed for those poignant body casts from the voids left by decomposed bodies, Herculaneum's pyroclastic flows had a different and in many ways more revealing effect. The death it delivered was swifter, hotter, and the preservation it offered, particularly for organic materials, was unparalleled. The very force that obliterated life in Herculaneum also created an archaeological treasure unlike any other. Herculaneum's obliteration was swift and absolute, but the very nature of its destruction, that sequence of superheated pyroclastic flows, created an almost miraculous state of preservation for organic materials. This is something rarely seen in the archaeological record, and it's where Herculaneum truly stands apart from Pompeii, offering an unparalleled window into the Roman world. While Pompeii was mostly buried under a blanket of dry pumice and ash, Herculaneum was swamped by waves of wet, fine-grained volcanic mud and pyroclastic material. This stuff, initially superheated, flowed like a torrent, filling every nook and cranny. Crucially, as this dense, muddy mixture cooled and solidified, it formed an airtight seal around everything it encased. This lack of oxygen was key. It stopped organic materials from completely burning up despite the initial intense heat, and it halted the natural decay processes that would normally make wood, textiles, food, and even papyrus disintegrate over centuries. Think about it. The initial blast of extreme heat carbonized the outer surfaces of wooden objects, essentially creating a protective charcoal layer. Then, subsequent flows buried these items deeply and rapidly. The sheer depth of the burial, up to 20 to 25 meters in some spots, also helped preserve things by creating a stable, oxygen-free environment, protecting delicate organic remains from air, moisture changes, and microbes. So, what does this mean? We found wooden beams in houses, intricately carved furniture, doors still on their hinges, and even everyday items like fishing nets and ropes. In Pompeii, these things, if not completely incinerated, would have rotted away long ago, leaving only impressions or, at best, mineralized remnants. But in Herculaneum, archaeologists have unearthed these items in a remarkable state. Charred and fragile, yes, but often intact. Wooden staircases, window frames, shutters, even elaborate wooden screens and partitions have been found. This incredible preservation goes beyond just structural elements. Delicate items like a baby's wooden cradle, tragically found with the tiny skeleton still inside, have survived. Wooden chests have been discovered containing linen, a material that rarely makes it. Even food items, like loaves of bread, nuts, fruits, and beans, have been found carbonized but recognizable, offering direct evidence of the Roman diet. One particularly striking find was a plate of eggs, perfectly preserved in their carbonized state. The science behind this involves a mix of factors: that intense but brief initial heat causing surface carbonization, the rapid burial by dense material, the creation of an airtight, oxygen-free environment, and the sheer depth of the deposits shielding everything. This unique process has made Herculaneum a goldmine for understanding aspects of Roman daily life that are simply invisible at most other archaeological sites. Of course, excavating and conserving these finds is a massive challenge. Carbonized wood, while often structurally whole, is incredibly fragile. Early excavators sometimes accidentally damaged or destroyed these materials, but modern archaeology has developed sophisticated techniques. Conservators might slowly dry the wood, consolidate it with special resins, or even bathe objects in hydrogenated sugars to reinforce their delicate structures, ensuring these irreplaceable glimpses into the past survive. You'll even find advanced climate control systems in Herculaneum's exhibition spaces now, all to protect these delicate organic treasures. So Herculaneum isn't just a collection of ruins, it's a time capsule where the very fabric of Roman life, in its most perishable forms, was frozen by the same fire and mud that brought its existence to a sudden, tragic end. Astonishing might be an understatement for the wooden artifacts recovered from Herculaneum's volcanic tomb. In a world where ancient wood usually just rots away, Herculaneum is a near miraculous exception. The town offers not just impressions or fragments, but actual, recognizable, and often beautifully crafted wooden objects that tell us so much about the daily lives, craftsmanship, and even the social structures of the people who lived there. Walking through Herculaneum's excavated areas, you can still see original wooden beams supporting roofs, charred but still there. Wooden doors, some still hanging on their carbonized hinges, mark the entrances to homes and shops. Intricate wooden window frames and latticed shutters, which once filtered the Mediterranean sunlight, give us a peek into the architectural details of Roman homes. These aren't reconstructions. They are the very materials that surrounded the people of Herculaneum in their final moments. Among the most incredible finds are pieces of furniture. Wooden beds, tables, and chests have been unearthed, their forms preserved by those unique burial conditions. Imagine a wealthy Roman household, maybe a finely carved wooden couch, a storage chest holding valuable textiles, and yes, some linen fragments have survived inside such chests, or a simple wooden stool in a craftsman's workshop. These items, often known only from paintings or written descriptions, are right there in Herculaneum, in their physical, albeit carbonized form. One of the most poignant wooden artifacts has to be a child's cradle. Discovered in the house of the wooden cradle, its simple rocking form is instantly recognizable. The fact that the tiny skeleton of an infant was found within it just amplifies the human tragedy of the eruption, transforming an everyday object into a powerful symbol of lost life and interrupted family moments. This single artifact says more about the personal impact of the disaster than pages of description ever could. Other wooden items reveal the town's diverse activities. Fishing nets and ropes, essential tools for a coastal community, have been found. Wooden presses, likely used for making wine or olive oil, hint at the local economy. Shelving in shops, once laden with goods, still stands in some places. Even small personal items made of wood, which would be completely lost at other sites, have a chance of survival here. The preservation of these wooden artifacts also gives architectural historians invaluable information. We can see the techniques used in Roman carpentry, the types of wood they preferred, and how they joined and finished things. The survival of second stories in many Herculaneum buildings, often with their wooden floors and roof structures partially intact, gives a much clearer picture of Roman urban architecture than the mostly ground floor remains at Pompeii. But unearthing and then preserving these wooden treasures is a hugely delicate and complex job. When first exposed after nearly 2 millennia in their stable, oxygen-free environment, the carbonized wood is extremely vulnerable. Changes in humidity, temperature, and oxygen levels can make it quickly degrade, warp, or even crumble if not handled with extreme care. Early excavations, done with less sophisticated techniques, undoubtedly led to the loss of some wooden material. But modern archaeology uses a whole battery of conservation methods. These can range from slow, controlled drying to impregnation with consolidants like polyethylene glycol, PEG, a waxy substance that replaces the water in the wood's cells and gives it structural support. More recently, as we touched on, techniques involving hydrogenated sugars have been developed to reinforce these fragile objects. The ongoing challenge is to stabilize these artifacts so they can be studied and displayed without further deterioration, ensuring these unique whispers from the ashes continue to tell their stories. The advanced climate control in Herculaneum's exhibition spaces really shows this commitment to long-term preservation. Beyond the preserved homes and everyday objects, Herculaneum guards an intellectual treasure of incredible significance, the only substantial library to have survived from the classical world. This extraordinary find comes from a sprawling, luxurious suburban residence known today as the Villa of the Papyri. It's believed to have once belonged to Lucius Calpurnius Piso Caesoninus, Julius Caesar's father-in-law, and this opulent villa housed an extensive collection of around 1,800 papyrus scrolls. When those pyroclastic flows engulfed Herculaneum, the intense heat carbonized these tightly rolled scrolls. They weren't reduced to ash, but rather baked, much like wood, into brittle, blackened cylinders. For centuries they lay buried, their precious contents seemingly lost forever. Discovered in the mid-18th century during early tunnel-based excavations, these charred lumps were initially mistaken for pieces of charcoal. It was only when one was accidentally broken, revealing faint traces of writing, that their true nature was realized. What a moment that must have been. The challenge then, as it still is today, was how to read them. Physically unrolling these carbonized scrolls is an incredibly delicate and often destructive process. Early attempts in the 18th and 19th centuries, using ingenious but pretty basic mechanical devices, managed to unroll some scrolls, but many were damaged or destroyed. The texts that were recovered were often fragmentary, the ink faded and hard to tell apart from the blackened papyrus. Despite these difficulties, the initial decipherments were revolutionary. They revealed a library mostly focused on Greek philosophical texts, particularly the works of the Epicurean philosopher Philodemus, a contemporary of Cicero who is known to have been associated with Piso. These texts covered topics from ethics and logic to music and poetry, giving us priceless insights into Hellenistic philosophy and the intellectual life of the Roman elite. Works by Epicurus himself, previously known only through secondary sources, were found among the scrolls. For decades, progress was slow. Many scrolls remained stubbornly rolled, too fragile to risk trying to open them mechanically. But the dawn of the 21st century brought new hope with advanced imaging technologies. Techniques like multispectral imaging, MSI, which uses different wavelengths of light to enhance the contrast between the carbon-based ink and the carbonized papyrus, started to yield results on previously unreadable fragments. X-ray phase contrast tomography, XPCT, offered the potential to see inside the still rolled scrolls by detecting tiny differences in density caused by the ink. The real game changer, though, has been the recent application of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Projects like the Vesuvius Challenge, launched in 2023, have spurred incredible innovation. Researchers provide high-resolution X-ray scans of the scrolls to teams around the world, who then develop AI algorithms to virtually unroll the papyri and detect the traces of ink. This non-invasive approach allows scholars to read the texts without physically damaging the scrolls. It's like magic, but it's science. In early 2024 and 2025, significant breakthroughs were announced. AI-driven methods successfully deciphered passages from previously unreadable scrolls, identifying words and even entire columns of text. One of the first words to be translated from a scroll scanned at the Diamond Light Source Synchrotron facility was the ancient Greek word for disgust, diatropy. Further analysis of this scroll revealed it to be a work by Philodemus titled On Vices and Their Opposite Virtues. The texts revealed passages about music, food, and life's pleasures, totally consistent with Epicurean philosophy. This virtual unwrapping process is painstaking. AI models are trained on fragments where the ink is visible, learning to distinguish the subtle differences between inked and uninked areas on the carbonized surface. These models then reconstruct the layers of the scroll, revealing the hidden writing. The results are then reviewed and interpreted by expert papyrologists. The potential here is immense. Hundreds of scrolls from the Villa of the Papyri remain largely unread. What could they contain? Lost literary masterpieces, unknown philosophical treatises, historical accounts or personal letters that could rewrite our understanding of the ancient world. The library primarily contained Greek philosophical works, but there's always the hope of finding Latin texts, maybe even lost works by famous Roman authors. The Vesuvius Challenge and similar initiatives are ongoing, promising more revelations as technology keeps improving. Successfully deciphering these texts isn't just an academic exercise. It's recovering lost knowledge, a direct conversation with minds from 2 millennia ago, made possible by the very disaster that destroyed and preserved their words. The investigation into Herculaneum's secrets is far from over. Just as these ancient scrolls are yielding new knowledge, the city itself keeps revealing the intimate details of Roman life. If you're finding this journey into the forgotten city as fascinating as we do, make sure to subscribe and click that notification bell. There's so much more to unearth, and you won't want to miss what we uncover next as we delve deeper into the human stories frozen in time. This led to a widely accepted theory that most of Herculaneum's inhabitants, perhaps alerted by the early stages of the eruption or noticing the wind sparing them from immediate ashfall, had managed to escape, probably by sea. It was a somewhat comforting thought, suggesting this smaller, wealthier town had perhaps been luckier than its larger neighbor. That theory was dramatically and tragically shattered in the early 1980s. During excavations of the ancient beachfront, Herculaneum's old harbor area, archaeologists made a startling discovery. Inside a series of arched stone boathouses, or fornici, lining the shore, they found human remains. Not just a few, but hundreds. To date, over 300 skeletons have been uncovered in these boathouses and on the nearby beach. These were the people who hadn't escaped. They had fled to what they must have thought was the safety of the sturdily built boathouses, perhaps huddled together, anxiously waiting for rescue by sea. They were families, groups of friends, individuals from all walks of life, their final moments captured in their skeletal remains. The scene is incredibly poignant. People shielding their faces, parents clutching children, huddled in small groups, seeking comfort and protection from an unimaginable terror. Forensic analysis of these skeletons paints a grim picture of how they died. They weren't crushed by falling debris or slowly suffocated like many in Pompeii. Instead, they were victims of the intense, searing heat of the pyroclastic surges that swept through Herculaneum. As we've discussed, temperatures reached hundreds of degrees Celsius. At such extremes, death would have been virtually instantaneous. A thermal shock so severe, their soft tissues would have vaporized almost immediately, leaving only their skeletons. This is a stark contrast to Pompeii, where the plaster casts capture the final postures of victims whose bodies decayed slowly under the ash. In Herculaneum, the connection to the individuals is more direct, if more skeletal. Among the skeletons, personal belongings were found, offering heartbreaking glimpses into their lives and last desperate moments. A Roman soldier, identified by his sword and belt, was found with a bag of tools and coins. A woman, nicknamed the Ring Lady, wore precious rings and bracelets. A surgeon was found with his medical instruments. These small personal items make the tragedy incredibly real, connecting us to these individuals not as anonymous victims, but as people with professions, statuses, and personal treasures they hope to save. The study of these skeletal remains has provided a wealth of information that goes far beyond just the cause of death. DNA analysis, isotope studies of teeth and bones, and examinations of bone structure have offered unprecedented insights into the demographics, health, diet, and even the occupations of Herculaneum's population. We can learn about common diseases, nutritional deficiencies, levels of physical activity, and even family relationships. For instance, studies have shown a diet rich in seafood, as you'd expect from a coastal town, but also diverse in other proteins and vegetables. The skeletal evidence suggests a generally healthy population, though with signs of the wear and tear of daily Roman life. The discovery of the boat people, as they're sometimes called, fundamentally changed our understanding of Herculaneum's fate. It dispelled the myth of mass escape and replaced it with a more harrowing reality, a community seeking refuge, only to be met by an inescapable wave of volcanic fury. The boathouses, once symbols of maritime commerce and leisure, became their collective tomb. These skeletons, huddled together against a terrifying end, are perhaps the most powerful and humanizing discovery at Herculaneum, a silent, stark tableau of a city's final, tragic moments. They are a constant reminder that beneath the archaeological layers lie individual human stories, lives cut short by one of history's most infamous natural disasters. When Mount Vesuvius blew its top in 79 AD, it sealed the fates of two prominent Roman towns, Pompeii and Herculaneum. For centuries, Pompeii has pretty much hogged the spotlight, its vast ruins and haunting plaster casts becoming iconic symbols of Roman life frozen in time. Herculaneum, often called Pompeii's twin or even forgotten twin, has kind of lived in its shadow. Yet, if you look closer, you'll see that while both cities shared a common doom, their individual stories, the way they were destroyed and how they were preserved, are remarkably different. Understanding these differences is key to appreciating just how unique Herculaneum is. The most basic difference is in the volcanic stuff that buried them. Pompeii was mostly inundated by a rain of lightweight pumice, lapilli, and huge amounts of fine volcanic ash. This downpour lasted for many hours, gradually piling up several meters deep. The material was relatively porous. Herculaneum, on the other hand, got slammed by a series of pyroclastic flows and surges, those superheated avalanches of gas, ash, and rock fragments that behaved more like a liquid, followed by volcanic mud flows. This material was far denser and, when it cooled, solidified into a compact, almost concrete-like layer, reaching much greater depths than in Pompeii. This difference in burial material had huge consequences for preservation. In Pompeii, the loose ash perfectly molded around the bodies of victims. As the soft tissues decayed, they left voids. Archaeologists in the 19th century cleverly filled these voids with plaster, creating those famous and poignant casts that capture victims' final moments. But organic materials like wood and textiles mostly decomposed or were carbonized beyond recognition in the oxygen-rich ash, unless they were in exceptionally protected spots. Frescoes, mosaics, and stone structures, though, were remarkably well preserved. Herculaneum tells a different preservation story. The airtight seal created by that dense, solidified pyroclastic material was exceptionally good for the survival of organic materials. Wood, as we've seen, survived in an extraordinary state, from structural beams and doors to furniture, and even delicate items like a cradle. Foodstuffs like bread, nuts, and beans were carbonized but intact. Most significantly, The papyrus scrolls of the Villa of the Papyri were preserved, giving us the only intact ancient library. Human remains in Herculaneum are primarily skeletons, as the intense heat of the pyroclastic flows vaporized soft tissues almost instantly, especially clear with the boathouse discoveries. This offers a more direct, though perhaps less immediately evocative, connection to the individuals than Pompeii's casts. The scale of the sites also differs. Pompeii was a larger, more bustling commercial city, with a much bigger area excavated. Its ruins include a large amphitheater, numerous temples, public baths, brothels, and a wide array of shops and townhouses, showing a diverse urban population. Herculaneum was smaller, a wealthier residential town, more like a seaside resort. Its excavated area is more compact, partly because a big chunk of the ancient town still lies beneath the modern city of Herculano. This smaller scale, however, often makes for a more intimate visitor experience. The visitor experience itself highlights more contrasts. Pompeii, being more famous and sprawling, often feels grander and can be much more crowded. Its ruins, while spectacular, often lack their upper stories. Herculaneum, being less crowded, often allows for a more thoughtful visit. Crucially, because of how it was buried and excavated, often involving tunneling, especially in the early days and later deeper open-air digs, many of Herculaneum's buildings are preserved to a greater height, often with intact second floors, balconies, and original wooden elements. This gives a much better sense of the three-dimensional reality of a Roman town. In terms of notable discoveries, while Pompeii is famed for its vast array of vibrant frescoes, mosaics, and insights into public life and commerce, Herculaneum's unique contributions are its unparalleled organic finds, the wooden artifacts and the papyrus scrolls, and that haunting collection of skeletons in the boathouses that tell such a vivid human story. So, why has Herculaneum often been forgotten or overshadowed? Several things might play into it. Pompeii's excavation began earlier and on a larger scale, grabbing public attention first. Those dramatic plaster casts from Pompeii created an immediate, visceral connection for early visitors and scholars. Herculaneum's excavation was, and still is, more challenging due to the hardness of the volcanic tuff and the fact that the modern town sits on top of much of the ancient site. However, as archaeological methods advance and the unique value of Herculaneum's discoveries becomes more widely appreciated, it's increasingly recognized not just as Pompeii's twin, but as a site of equal, if different, historical and archaeological importance. It offers a complementary, and in some ways even richer, insight into the Roman world, precisely because its tragic end was so uniquely different. The story of Herculaneum isn't a closed book. Nearly 2 millennia after its catastrophic burial, and centuries after its rediscovery, the site is still an active ground for investigation. Modern archaeological techniques and scientific advancements are unlocking secrets that previous generations could only dream of. That suspenseful investigation into Herculaneum's past is very much alive, promising new revelations about Roman life, the eruption itself, and the incredible preservation of its remains. One of the most exciting frontiers, as we've talked about, is deciphering the Herculaneum Papyri. The use of artificial intelligence, coupled with advanced scanning technologies like X-ray phase contrast tomography from synchrotron particle accelerators, is revolutionizing papyrology. The Vesuvius challenge has shown the power of crowdsourcing and AI to virtually unwrap and read these carbonized scrolls without causing physical damage. As these techniques are refined and applied to more of the hundreds of still unread scrolls, the potential for discovering lost philosophical works, literature, or historical documents is immense. Each newly deciphered word or passage adds another piece to the puzzle of ancient thought and culture. We are, in essence, listening to new voices from antiquity. How cool is that? Forensic archaeology keeps yielding profound insights from the skeletal remains in the boathouses. Beyond initial observations, advanced DNA analysis can reveal genetic relationships between individuals, their origins, and susceptibility to certain diseases. Isotopic analysis of bones and teeth provides detailed information about diet, nutrition, and even migration patterns. These studies transform the skeletons from mere victims into biographical subjects, offering a really close-up look at the health and lifestyle of an ancient Roman population. New analyses are also refining our understanding of their exact cause of death, with recent studies on vitrified brain tissue suggesting incredibly rapid exposure to extreme heat. Conservation science plays a crucial role in the ongoing investigation. The unique preservation of organic materials, particularly wood, presents enormous challenges. Researchers are constantly developing and refining techniques to stabilize and preserve these fragile artifacts. This includes creating controlled microclimates for display and storage, and pioneering new chemical treatments to prevent degradation now that they're exposed to the air. Each successfully conserved artifact is a data point, a piece of tangible history saved for future study. Non-invasive survey techniques are also vital, especially since a large part of Herculaneum remains unexcavated beneath the modern town of Herculano. Things like ground-penetrating radar, GPR, magnetometry, and electrical resistivity tomography can help archaeologists map buried structures and identify areas of interest for future excavation, all without disturbing the overlying modern city. This allows for targeted investigations and helps in planning the long-term management of the archaeological park. The study of the volcanic deposits themselves continues to inform our understanding of the eruption sequence and its specific impact on Herculaneum. Detailed stratigraphy, chemical analysis of volcanic materials, and computer modeling help volcanologists reconstruct the precise nature, timing, and temperature of the pyroclastic flows, adding crucial context to the archaeological findings. But mysteries still remain. What other texts lie hidden in the unexcavated portions of the Villa of the Pompeii, or perhaps in other yet undiscovered elite residences? What can further analysis of the waterfront reveal about Herculaneum's maritime trade and connections? How did the social fabric of this smaller, wealthier town really differ in its daily operations from that of Pompeii? The challenges are also significant. Protecting the excavated site from environmental degradation, managing tourism sustainably, and securing funding for ongoing research and conservation are constant concerns. The very act of excavation, while revealing, also exposes fragile remains to new threats. Yet, the allure of discovery is powerful. Herculaneum is a finite resource, but the information it holds is vast. With each passing year, new technologies and new research questions bring us closer to understanding the intricate details of this lost city. The investigation is a meticulous, patient process, piecing together a forgotten world, one artifact, one skeleton, one carbonized scroll at a time, ensuring that Herculaneum, Pompeii's uniquely preserved twin, continues to share its extraordinary stories. Herculaneum, for so long overshadowed by the sheer scale of Pompeii, emerges from Vesuvius's volcanic shadow not as a mere echo, but as a distinct and profoundly eloquent testament to Roman life, frozen in an instant of unimaginable terror. Its story, etched in carbonized wood, delicate papyri, and that haunting assembly of skeletons by the ancient shore, offers an unparalleled window into a world that vanished nearly 2,000 years ago. The unique way it was destroyed, those swift, searing pyroclastic flows, and then entombment in dense, airtight volcanic mud, really set Herculaneum apart. This tragic fate became its archaeological miracle, preserving organic materials to an extent rarely seen anywhere else in the Roman world. Wooden doors still hanging in their frames, elaborate furniture, everyday household items, and even food remnants provide such a tangible connection to the textures and realities of daily existence in 79 AD. You can almost imagine walking through these homes moments before disaster struck. The Villa of the Pompeii stands as a beacon of ancient intellect, its charred scrolls representing the only library to survive from antiquity. The ongoing efforts to decipher these texts, fueled by cutting-edge AI and imaging technology, promise to unlock lost philosophical treatises, literary works, and historical insights, effectively resurrecting voices that have been silent for millennia. Each deciphered word is a triumph against Vesuvius's destructive power, a testament to human ingenuity and our enduring quest for knowledge. And then there are the human stories, most poignantly captured by the skeletons in the boathouses. These individuals, huddled together in their final moments, strip away the centuries, reminding us that these archaeological sites were once homes, workplaces, and communities filled with vibrant lives, hopes, and fears. Their remains, studied with the tools of modern science, offer intimate details about who these people were, how they lived, and the sudden, brutal nature of their end. Herculaneum isn't simply a smaller Pompeii. It's a unique archaeological treasure that complements and, in many respects, enriches the narrative provided by its more famous neighbor. It reveals different facets of Roman society, different architectural details, and an astonishing array of materials that just didn't survive elsewhere. Its better preserved upper stories allow us to visualize a Roman town in 3 dimensions in a way that's often difficult at Pompeii. The ongoing investigation at Herculaneum continues to push the boundaries of archaeological science and conservation. It's a place where the past is constantly speaking to the present, challenging our understanding and offering fresh perspectives. The city, once lost and forgotten, is now revealed as a site of immense importance, offering a uniquely intimate and human perspective on the ancient world. The legacy of Herculaneum is one of profound tragedy, but also of incredible resilience. The resilience of materials against the odds, and the resilience of human curiosity that drives us to uncover and understand our past. It stands as a stark reminder of nature's awesome power, but also as a beautiful, fragile, and irreplaceable archive of human civilization, forever preserved in fire, mud, carbon, and wood. The story of Herculaneum is a testament to what can be learned when we meticulously investigate the echoes of the past. What part of Herculaneum's story did you find most astonishing? The preserved wood, the ancient scrolls, or those tragic human remains? Let us know in the comments below. If you were captivated by this journey to Pompeii's forgotten twin, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into lost civilizations and untold histories. Consider supporting channels like ours or organizations dedicated to archaeological preservation, so these stories can continue to be told. Until next time, keep exploring.